Well, hello everyone, welcome back. So, as I said in my recent video of canning jalapenos and carrots, the one thing my garden did great on this year is hot peppers, and I have jalapenos. So I've jarred up these with jalapenos, carrots, onions, garlic. It's a Tex-Mex style treat, and it's used almost everywhere as a garnish and a side when you're having anything Tex-Mex or even barbecue. But I still have these, and I've got a few more in the garden that are gonna either be ready soon or the cold will get them, depending on which comes first. So what I want to do today is I'm going to take these jalapenos and I'm going to dehydrate them, and I'll probably make jalapeno powder that you can use for seasoning all year long. So let's get going. First thing you're going to do anytime you're working with hot peppers, and these jalapenos are hot, is you're going to wear gloves. You don't have to, but I highly recommend it. It's not fun when your hands burn for a day. And this is so easy to do, but again, just make sure you're not exposing your skin to it. We're going to cut the ends off, and then I'm going to cut them in half lengthwise. And I have this little tool, but you can use a spoon, you can use a paring knife, whatever you want. And we're taking out the seeds. Seeds will not grind up well, so it's better just to take them out. They are not going to take away from the heat. And our goal here is to get that jalapeno flavor in a powder. Now you can leave that membrane in there, and that does add heat, believe me. But that's up to you. And then we're just going to lay them face down on dehydrating sheets. And I have had to wait a few days to do this because of my schedule and the fact that I have to do this in the morning because we're off grid and I need them to have as much time as possible in the dehydrator. And I want them to get dry as possible before night because I'll be turning the dehydrator off then. It just uses too much power. I'm just going to keep doing this to all of these peppers and get them into the dehydrator. I've got all my green ones sliced and I'm working on the red. And I saved those for last because I'm going to save those seeds. These are ripe. They're going to be hotter but they also are ripe and will save the seeds so that they can germinate next year, because these are really good jalapenos. Now, one thing I learned dehydrating, and this was from dehydrating tomatoes, the more surface area that you cut, I'm not cutting all the way through, but I'm cutting slits. And that allows more air to get in there and help dehydrate it faster, which I need that because I have short days to get these dehydrated. So I'm gonna get these all finished. I'm gonna slice the tops just slightly, just so that air can get to the inside of that flesh, because these skins are the last part inside to dry. So I'm gonna finish this up, and I will tell you, I know these red ones are hot. This is the second rack. I had one full rack already in the dehydrator, and I'm gonna put these on. I like to use a little bit lower temperature, so I'll probably use about 95 and see how far we can get. I left these peppers to dry longer. I put them in the dehydrator about 12 hours and turned them off because it was nighttime and I couldn't run the dehydrator. So I left them on the trays for a couple days, and because we have such a dry climate that they were dry enough it didn't hurt them at all. Then after that I got sidetracked with work and everything else and didn't get back to them. So they've been sitting here about a week and they are very dry. And what you want to see, they're very dry. If you bend them, they will snap. If they don't snap, they're not dry. These are pretty dry. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put them in my blender, my Vitamix. For this last week, I've had them sitting on top of a paper plate, but they were sitting on top of one of my dryer screens because they got pretty small. So I had to put them on something that allowed the air to flow. And I had them covered up with paper towels so no dust or dog hair or anything else could get into them. Or Bacon Bits, who tries to eat everything. He can't be trusted. So I've got those all very dry. And I'm going to very carefully, because Bacon Bits is at my feet, put these into the blender. Because if I drop one, he'll get it. He's fast. So put those in there. I'm gonna put the lid on. Now you're gonna have to be very careful because these are going to create a dust. So I should put on goggles. I'm not. I'm just going to be very careful. So I'm going to turn it all the way on low. Now I'm going to shake it up and look. I think some of the pieces are still larger than I would like. So I'm going to put it back on. Now, I'm going settle the dust before I take this lid off, because I don't want that dust to come up in my face. Even standing back, even standing back, it got in my throat. That's what it looks like right now. I'd like to get it finer. Now it's more like a powder, and this is going to be really fun to open. I'm going to stand way back, but I'm going to kind of hit it around first because I want as much of that to settle as possible. And I can see the powder coming up. So I'm going to stand back for a minute. And there we have the jalapeno powder. And guys, this stuff is hot, and I haven't even tasted it, but I can tell just from the dust coming up. So I'm going to let that settle some more. And then I'm going to very carefully, I may have to put a mask on, very carefully put this into some kind of container. And I'm trying to decide what I want to do. So I'm going to let this settle and we'll come back. Well, I got so wrapped up in trying to protect myself from the pepper powder that I forgot to film it. So I put this bandana and I still got some. So I put a bandana over my nose and mouth, and I put my soaping goggles on my face. And that did a great job protecting me from all of the powder that was wafting through the air. And it did. So I managed to get all of, or most of, the jalapeno powder out of the Vitamix blender into this shaker jar. Used to hold cumin powder, so it will be perfect. Brian will have this to put on whatever he wants to add flavor and heat to. I can stay at a distance. It's hot, guys. This pepper is hot. So I used a funnel to get it in there, and this little scooper that goes with my Vitamix. Managed to get it in the jar, and hopefully I don't have to do this for another year because this was brutal. The drying part wasn't bad. The powder I knew was going to be a challenge, but it worked. It's dry. Now, you need to make sure it's fully dry. I may put a few grains of rice in there just in case to make sure that it's completely dry. But I think in my case it is. Again, our climate is very dry. Today is slightly humid, but they were still dry enough to snap. But I'll go ahead and add a few grains of rice just to ensure that this doesn't turn into a solid clump of powder. If your climate is more humid, you might want to grind it into the powder and spread it on a baking sheet and put it in a very, very low oven for a while, maybe several hours, just to make sure it's totally dried out. I'm not too worried about that here, but I'll keep an eye on it also. So jalapeno pepper powder, and Brian's gonna love it. And I don't know that I'll use it, but he will. Thank you for watching, and God bless.